I'll leave that at that. I mean, it's good, but it's not. It's not the sort of international policy that I'd like to see, which is supporting self-determination in other countries and supporting, rights elsewhere over our own interests. And the same goes for Afghanistan. The idea that Afghanistan is such a mess. I heard some pundit recently talk about how we're winning Afghanistan. It just seems absurd. Afghanistan is a complete mess. And if we pull out of Afghanistan, I think it'll be at least as bad, if not worse, than when we went in. And I don't see us pulling out of Afghanistan anytime soon. And the policies that Obama has supported that are good, those are great. But I wouldn't have expected him, for example, with the sort of person he ran as, the sort of candidate that he seemed to be in 2008. You ask what I would like to see. I would like to see him, when he promises to veto the NDAA, I'd like to see him do it instead of just write on there, well, I'm not really okay with this, but I'm going to sign it anyway. What the hell does that mean, So I'd like to see things like that. I'd like to see him stand behind things like that. And he ran on this idea of compromise, of bipartisanship. And he's tried to hold that line against a Republican Congress that's often just takes whatever side he's against, and makes it difficult to get things done. And so again, I'm not sure whether or not it's actually a spirit of bipartisanship that's driving the problem, or the need to look that way, or actually not necessarily wanting all the policies his people claim to want. I don't really know, but a lot of it hasn't gotten done. And as far as the healthcare goes, it's again complicated, and it's rolling out. And there's plenty of time to go back on a lot of that. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of it is taken back, whether by a Republican president or Congress or by a Democrat. I wouldn't be surprised if not all of that materializes. And what is materializing is good. It's a step, but it's nowhere near what we need as an industrial first world nation. And we need national healthcare policy. That's what we need, and that's not exactly what we're getting. Again, that's a whole thing unto itself with the healthcare industry, lobbyists and whatnot. But yeah, I would like to see a lot more follow through on the things that Obama talks about, and we'll see the sort of. It's interesting that Obama has started to pick up some of the rhetoric of Occupy Wall Street already. And he's used terms like 99%, 1%. Well, I think in the State of the Union he said 2%. But whatever. It's the same concept, right? Yeah. But it's interesting that he's picked up on some of that, and I'm not sure if that's a good idea. It's also interesting to me that there's not other candidates on the left that have stepped up to try to capitalize off of Occupy Wall Street's momentum. I'm not saying that's a bad thing either. A lot of people on Occupy Wall Street were very wary of co-optation, but I'm surprised no one's tried it, and that Obama has managed to, or is trying to walk that line, and we'll see how that plays out for him.
You don't think that sounds a little bit hollow, considering the amount of Wall Street financiers and one percenters that have gone in and out of his administration?
Hollow that he's...
Yeah,
absolutely. Oh yeah, I'm not saying that Obama is going to be down there in Zuccotti Park with us. I'm saying that it's interesting that some of the rhetoric of Occupy Wall Street is now coming out through Obama in his speeches, and that's a conscious choice for sure. I'm not sure I'm saying tactically, I'm not sure it's a good choice, but it's interesting that it's happening. It's noteworthy. I'm not saying it's not genuine. I don't think, or again, I don't want to speculate on how genuine his intentions are, but it's certainly not going to happen. It's not going to become. We're not going to see general assemblies on the White House lawn. Yeah, I think it's an important political development that he's using that sort of language.
All right. And our final question. What would you posit are the greatest challenges to the United States in the short term and in the long term?
Right. I think that it's a difficult question because it's so broad that it'd be like asking, what's the greatest challenge to a human being's health? It's like, how would you compare the risk of getting hit by a car to eating a high-fat diet? It's just like there's a lot going on. So it's hard. And also to answer that, you'd have to pull apart exactly what you mean by the U.S. I mean, do you mean the nation state of the U.S.? Or do you mean the political and economic institutions of the U.S.? Do you mean the current leadership of the U.S.? Do you mean the majority of people in the U.S.? Do you mean the foundational principles that you believe are of the U.S.? What exactly do you mean by?
Well, our collective sort of future.
Our collective future. Again, there's so much. There are so many challenges. I think that I could just to list a few that I think are important. I think internally, the income inequality in the U.S. is becoming an increasing problem. It's increasingly noticed by the population, whether or not it's people on Occupy Wall Street talking about the 1%, or whether it's Tea Party people talking about the rich liberal elite in the Northeast. It's becoming more and more clear that the income gap is driving a lot of problems, and I think that we're going to have to address that one way or another. I also think it's a problem that internationally our intentions are taken less and less seriously. Or I shouldn't say seriously, but I think that internationally the U.S. is being looked at with a lot more wariness than maybe a couple decades ago in areas that formerly I think were really supported by and supported the U.S. And that's going to be a problem as other burgeoning world powers increase their regional power. Our military and economic hegemony isn't going to last much longer, and that's more short term than I think a lot of people would like to realize. That's going to be a big problem as well. And I want to throw in also that it's a problem. The environmental issues are a problem for all human beings, including us. And the environmental impact of polluting practices hit the global south, the developing world, the hardest at the moment. But they're going to hit us too. They are, and they will increasingly. And that's something that whoever is in power is going to have to address.
Well, Ben, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today. You definitely shed light on where the left, progressive, or sometimes OWS movement sees the world. And thank you, everybody, for joining us.
I just want to say also that I want to thank you for having me and for putting this out. And I think that increasing dialogue and meaningful discourse between what we could call the left and the right is incredibly important. And I want to thank you for doing this. I think the more this happens, the better. There's a lot of differences between us, and hopefully we keep debating. But there's also some similarities that I think our differences and a lot of anger can obscure, and that's important. There are similarities to the concerns people in the Tea Party have to people on Occupy Wall Street, and I think those are important to explore.
Well, again, thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you, Ben. It's been wonderful.